defeat MS-13 once and for all. We have a great country. I want to keep it that way.
President Trump will head to Capitol Hill Tuesday to meet with House Republicans on immigration. The president calling out Democrats, tweeting they can stop the separation of children if they work with Republicans.
If you do not want to be separated, do not cross the border illegally. Follow our laws, follow the process.
President Trump lashing out at James Comey following the Inspector General's report. Some Republicans want to know why FBI agent Peter Strzok still has a job.
Peter Strzok should be prosecuted.
Comey's been fired. Deputy Director McCabe fired. Why is Peter Strzok still there?
Inspector General Michael Horowitz will go before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Monday.
What I'm expecting is for the Inspector General Horowitz to do the same kind of tap dance. It's not a swamp, it's a daggum sewer.
It's a wild day at the U.S. Open. Dustin Johnson still leading.
Phil Mickelson, he took a shot, the ball started rolling.
Whoa.
He hit it back while it was still going.
Whoa.
Yeah, the boys round here drinking that ice cold beer, talking about girls, talking about trucks.
Oh yeah, today is all about the dads, and I am surrounded by two pretty amazing dads this morning. I feel pretty lucky. If I can't wake up next to my husband, who is, I think, one of the best fathers in the entire world, I want to be with you two.
I think it's the purple ties. She just likes purple ties.
We did double purple today.
Yeah.
You guys
Purple's
look
it's a regal sort of royal color.
Reminds me of a king.
That's
it's Father's Day.
King for a day. I hear you have rules.
There's 5 rules for Father's Day, and you'll get them a little bit later as we wake up.
Griff has 5 rules for fathers on
Simple,
Father's Day.
easy
Simple
to understand.
One involves beer. It's just a tea. It's part of it. Yeah. But if you're a father, which if you or at least if you're a son means you have a father.
Yeah.
I guess everyone has a father, right?
You know, Pete, I'm going to make this simple for you. Send us photos of your dad, or if you are a dad, send us photos of your family, and let us know what you're doing today. How are you spending your Father's Day? What do you do that helps you relax, that enjoys being with your family? We want to hear all of it, so send it friends@foxnews.com.
Well, and
being the
guy from Washington, to where I will go back, Republicans getting ready for a busy week in Washington. Immigration is front and center. The president is going to meet with House Republicans on Tuesday. There are 2 bills that are under consideration. One is put forth by the House leadership, another more conservative one by Chairman Bob Goodlatte. He is going to be on this program later, and it is going to be quite a week on this issue that has become so passionate.
As you said, the president's going up on Tuesday, and this has really come to the forefront because this is what everyone's been talking about. You go online or you look on Twitter, and you're seeing what's happening at the border. And yes, it is heartbreaking what you're seeing happening with these children. But the bigger story here is, what do we do overall with immigration? How do we figure this out, including those kids? How do we make this right? And the president has talked about this from early on in the campaign trail. He's talked about getting tough on our immigration, but he's also talked about dealing with these children as well. Let's just take a look back at what the president has had to say about this.
The children can be taken care of quickly, beautifully, and immediately. I hate to see separation of parents and children. They are here illegally. They shouldn't be very worried. I do have a big heart. We're going to take care of everybody. But you have some absolutely incredible kids. I would say mostly. They were brought here in such a way. It's a very, very tough subject. We are going to deal with DACA with heart. Dick, if we do this properly, DACA, you're not so far away from comprehensive immigration reform. And if you want to take it that further step, I'll take the heat. I don't care. My whole life has been heat. I like heat in a certain way.
He has said, I will take the heat, because this is a really tough issue. You know, you've got family separation, a policy that has gone on previous administrations. They've enforced a zero-tolerance approach, believing that you have to do that in order to disincentivize illegal border crossings. But he said, hey, give me my wall. I'll give you a DACA deal. I don't think chain migration makes sense. The visa lottery program doesn't make sense. So both the Goodlatte bill and the leadership bill at some level address those. At the White House lawn, he kind of added some confusion to it by saying maybe I won't support the more moderate bill. But now he's meeting with House Republicans on Tuesday. We'll see where it goes. But But he has said, I'm ready to go. Where are my Democratic partners?
Right.
Where are the good faith people saying, if you don't like child separation, which he says he doesn't like either, then let's find a serious approach to get it done. But the wall has to be part of it. Because if you don't stop the flow of people, you don't actually ever stop the problem.
By the way, this has been, and you can talk about this too, Griff, this has been a challenge for administrations well before Donald Trump. They have faced how complex this is at the border. You can look up articles this morning and read about under the Obama years and how he actually put a team together specifically to handle what was going on at the border. And I'm reading this New York Times piece, and at one point they actually talked about this zero tolerance policy and what it would mean to separate these families. And after 5 minutes, they realized, well, politically, this would be a disaster for us. We can't actually go through with it. But it just gives you a sense of we've been dealing with this for quite some time now.
Let me just, it's not just the Obama administration. It goes all the way back to 1997 under Bill Clinton. And then President George W. Bush tried to tackle this. And now we're dealing with the fallout from the Obama administration. But it's significant in the Obama administration because while those past presidents found it too politically perilous, too difficult to take this tough stance that President Trump has made, President Obama, this occurred under them. They had a surge in even Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar, a border congressman, says and admits this happened. Take a listen to what Cuellar had to say.
Large numbers of people coming in. The Obama administration was trying to keep this quiet and released some photos that I had gone about those young kids that were kept there. And we're still seeing a numbers. And keep in mind, when they talk about putting some of the young kids in those centers, not all of them are being separated. Some of them are coming alone. It's not a matter that every single child that we have in those centers are being separated, because some of them are coming alone.
So it's one thing to keep it quiet, which is what the Obama administration tried to do. Another thing to take it head on. So give the Trump administration credit for saying, we have a crisis, we have a problem, we're going to confront it, we're going to try to deal with it. And the rhetoric coming out about what's being done on the border to deal with a problem that's existed for many generations.
Well, people are being called Nazis. They're comparing it to concentration camps.
It's
and the problem
unbelievable.
is that takes the conversation to a whole other place where we need to be dealing with immigration head on. So I think the president is right to go up to the Hill on Tuesday night and work this out with Republicans, because they are in a unique position where they are in control. You have Republicans in control of the House and the Senate, and President Trump. And he campaigned on being the negotiator in chief. He says, I can do things differently on the Hill. I know it's, as you know, very, very challenging to deal with folks on the Hill.
Because the rhetoric, as you mentioned, coming out, they're not just side backbench flamethrowers. You have General Michael Hayden, the head of the CIA, just
former head of the CIA, not a devout leftist.
No.
Just a...
Put this tweet up there. Other governments have separated mothers and children. You know, that's a picture.
That's a picture of a concentration camp that exterminated 1.1 million Jews at the hands of the Nazis. Just soak that in for a second. So we're saying, because we're enforcing laws on the books, temporarily separating kids from their parents who broke the law, by the way, by coming here illegally. And then while these kids are in temporary custody, they're getting school and soccer and video games and 3 squares and 2 snacks and plenty of sleep and lots of good. That's the same as exterminating 1.1 million Jews in gas chambers?
Right. But
Michael Hayden, you're an idiot. No, literally. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And that's the debate that we're in right now. Let's talk about the policy of separating kids. Fine.
Right.
You compare it to concentration camps, you're derailing the discussion in a way we can't even have it.
I would still say where we are right now is not sustainable. You know, the United States has always been the good guy. We've always been the ones.
We're still the good guy.
We're still the good guy, but that's also why we need to figure this out. So just to put some context, about 70% of the kids that come over the border, they come by themselves. They know that they're going to end up in these facilities.
Yeah.
It's about 30% of the kids there that are the ones that are separated from their parents. And over the past 6 weeks, it's been about 2,000 of those kids. And the president, as we showed you earlier, he's talked about this. He says that he wants to do something about it.
But again, Abby, these parents know they're breaking the law. This is a temporary separation.
Right.
They're not separated forever. a month, 2 months. I was deployed for 12 months. Like, separation is separation. They're going to be okay if their parents actually care for them. And our government, while not, it is a shelter, they're being cared for very well. It's not sustainable, you're right, because we don't have enough facilities, all that. Then find a solution, Congress. And that's what Trump has said. I'll take the heat. Let's figure this out.
Now, this is not the only story. I have to get this in there.
No, but I will say that this is the conversation the country's having, and this is why people are so passionate about it. It is such a big problem we've got to solve. So we will keep talking about it throughout the morning.
The rhetoric is inflammatory. The images are heart-wrenching, and the president is walking into a hornet's nest. But the other story that you're going to hear about is this Inspector General report, and we are going to have FBI Director Wray as well as Inspector General Michael Horowitz testifying tomorrow before Senator Grass's Judiciary Committee, then on Tuesday before Chairman Goodlatte's Judiciary and the Gowdy's OGR committee. But what's going to be the takeaway is, will anyone actually be prosecuted? Will there be criminal referrals? There were not any in the Inspector General's report, but we're going to hear a lot more about that today. As we know, the president has said he would like to see the investigators investigated. Particularly, I would think it would be people like Peter Strzok, that FBI agent in charge of the Clinton and Russia investigations, that said he would, quote, stop the president from becoming president.
You can imagine they will be in the hot seat. You do not want to miss it Monday and Tuesday. So we'll keep talking about that throughout the morning as well. A lot going on today on this Father's Day. We have some other headlines, though. I want to bring you those. One person is now in serious condition this morning after a taxi plows through a crowd during the World Cup. The driver suddenly accelerating onto a sidewalk while at a traffic light in Moscow. Bystanders ripping the door open, then chasing him across the street, as you can see there. Russian media claims that he is from Central Asia and had accidentally hit the gas. 2 Mexicans, 1 Ukrainian, and 2 Russians were sent to the hospital. No word yet on if the driver will face charges. And a candlelight vigil set for tonight to remember 2 fallen deputies, seen right there, Teresa King and Patrick Rohr, shot and killed outside a Kansas City courthouse. King, a 13-year veteran of the force, was a mother of 3 kids. Rohr had served 7 years and was a father of 2. Just so sad. Investigators believe inmate Antoine Fielder, seen right there, grabbed one of their guns as they escorted him into a robbery hearing. He was also shot and is expected to survive. Also this, President Trump making his pick to lead a major government watchdog agency. He plans to nominate Kathy Kraninger to run the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. She's currently an associate director of the Office of Management and Budget. Democrats are expected to fight her confirmation, no surprise there, following strict conservative reforms at the Bureau enacted by her current boss, Mick Mulvaney. And it's the final round of the U.S. Open, teeing off in just hours. And it is anyone's game. In round 3, Dustin Johnson stumbling into a 4-way tie for first place. He, along with Daniel Berger, Tony Finau, and Brooks Koepka, all at 3 over par. But everybody is talking about this.
Whoa. Whoa.
Phil Mickelson chasing after his putt, hitting the ball while it's still moving, resulting in a 2-stroke penalty. Of course, live coverage today of the final round on Fox beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern.
I do that when I golf. I've literally never seen a professional golfer do that ever. No, exactly.
Particularly
I'm a terrible golfer.
So don't forget, email us your Father's Day pictures at friends@foxnews.com. I want to see people getting pampered. But how do President Trump's border policies compare to President Obama's? A reality check coming up.
And as Griff said, we are celebrating Father's Day the best way we know how, with classic dad jokes, of course.
Oh, no.
You call a pony with a sore throat? A little horse.
We're sharing your best ones, better than that one, just ahead.
0-0 party out of time.
What we saw over the last hour demonstrates that the Trump zero tolerance policy makes 0 sense and shows 0 understanding of American values.
Democratic lawmakers in Oregon furthering the narrative on the left. The Trump administration policies are to blame for the problems at the border and that migrant centers are in poor condition.
But take a look at this center for migrant children on the border in El Cajon, California, which provides lodging, meals, medical care, education, recreation, and other services.
So what is it really like in those shelters, and how do the president's policies compare to those of Obama?
Here to weigh in, Executive Director of the Center for Immigration Studies, Mark Krikorian. Great to have you here, Mark. This is an issue, as you know well, it's an emotional one. It is the topic of basically every conversation around the country right now. You have actually been to some of these centers. Walk us through what you saw.
Yep.
I think he's having some problems with the IFB. But as you can see there, we're showing you video and footage of inside these facilities. Mark, do we have you with us?
Yes. Good morning.
Mark, we're looking, good morning. We're looking at some of these images. You have been to some of these centers. Walk us through what you saw.
Well, I've been to an actual detention center for adults. The ones for minors are actually not detention centers. They're shelters. Nobody's detained from leaving. They can just leave. Sometimes they do. But even the regular detention center for adults, while, you know, someplace that if you were an American living in a modern society you wouldn't want to live in, frankly, for a lot of the folks from rural El Salvador or Honduras, it's a big step up. They get, you know, dental care for the first time in their lives. They actually, I mean, you know, I was actually told, and, you know, I didn't hear it from the detainees themselves, but that some of them actually ask to be returned if they get arrested somewhere else again along the border. They say, hey, that was a really good place. Can I go be sent back there? The ones that the children are in, and, you know, these are teenagers mostly, but not all of them, are, like I said, shelters. And, you know, they're doing the best they can, and they frankly do a pretty good job of taking care of the kids. The problem is the policy that forces the government to separate parents from their kids if they're being detained.
So, Mark, talk to us about that policy, because the imagery of the left is that we're literally only ripping kids from their mother on the border every single day, and zero tolerance is heartless. Talk to us about what zero tolerance means.
For people who are caught illegally crossing the border, if that's a federal crime, they're being prosecuted now for them. In the past, having a kid with you was basically a get-out-of-jail-free card. You were exempt from prosecution for the federal crime as long as you had a kid with you. Essentially, bringing your child you served as kind of a human shield against immigration enforcement. And that's what this administration has said it's not going to happen anymore. And remember, the only reason we're seeing this is because the previous administration basically said, bring a kid with you, we let you go into the U.S. with a summons to come back years from now, and, you know, if you don't, we're not going to look for you.
So
when you reward that, you get more of it.
What's the answer? Just quickly before I let you go. No one wants to see this happening, of course. No one wants a family to be separated. But where do we go from here? What is the answer?
We need some legal changes so that when we detain people for, say, if they've applied for asylum, they can be detained as a family until the case is decided. On the illegals who sneak across and are prosecuted, the answer is hook the parents and kids up as soon as they finish their brief sentence, send them back together. The issue here is people are using their kids as a ticket into the United States. That has to stop.
Absolutely. Mark Krikorian, thank you for your time this morning and the facts.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Mark, good to see you. Thank you.
You got it. Well, the media hammering the president, saying he has dictator envy. But are they making diplomacy and the art of the deal for something negative? We're going to debate it next.
And from Congress to the court, Ted Cruz squaring off in a basketball match for the ages, taking on Jimmy Kimmel. So who came out on top? If it were Pete, he would be losing that one. Oh.
Welcome back. A couple of quick headlines for you here. A graduation party turns deadly after a stampede inside a nightclub packed with nearly 500 people. 17, unfortunately, killed after panic set in when a tear gas canister was set off during a fight. 7 people, including several minors and the owner, were arrested following the incident. And the Eiffel Tower getting a new addition, bulletproof glass walls. The panels are 10 feet high and 2 inches thick, designed to prevent a terror attack, but will not impact tourism, they say, under the tower. Paris went on high alert after a series of attacks in 2015, including one that left more than 130 dead in 2015. Griff, over to you.
Thank you, Pete. These comments from President Trump about North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un sending the media into a total tailspin.
He's the head of a country, and I mean, he's the strong head. Don't let anyone think anything different. He speaks and his people sit up at attention. I want my people to do the same.
Now, the president later said it was a joke, but that didn't stop these headlines, like the Washington Post calling it dictator envy and Politico saying Donald dreams of dictators. So is the media making diplomacy and the art of the deal for something negative? Here to debate, Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright and former State Department press officer Morgan Ortagus. Good morning.
Good morning.
Antoine, let me start with you. Is the media just blowing this comment, which was intended as a joke, according to the president? Is he blowing it out? Are they blowing it out of proportion?
Well, we don't know what to take serious and what not to take serious with this president. All we do know is that we tend to respond, whether we're a supporter of the president or not, to what he gives us. And the truth of the matter is this president has a history of flirting with this idea or thought process of some dictatorship-like behavior. For instance, wanting to jail his political opponents, speaking to Hillary Clinton. So we don't know what to take serious and what to take not. What I've always been taught is that there's always an element of seriousness to every joke.
Morgan, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, so I think it was clearly a joke, and I actually think that there's a strategy behind the flattering words that the president has had for Kim Jong-un lately. Most of this presidency, President Trump has been incredibly tough on Kim Jong-un. In fact, the same media that are now criticizing him for what I think was a clear joke said that he was on the brink to leading America to nuclear war. So I think when what you saw for at least a full year of his presidency was very tough rhetoric on North Korea, very tough rhetoric on Kim Jong-un. Now that he's met with him, he's trying to get to a deal. So I think he is sort of playing good cop in this administration, and he's letting Secretary Pompeo, Ambassador Bolton, they've had incredibly tough words for North Korea. They said that the sanctions are still in place until they see some good faith act on North Korea to legitimately denuclearize. So I think that my assessment is what you're seeing in this administration, the president's paying good cop, trying to get a deal done, and he's letting his deputies sort of take on that tougher role.
But Morgan, that is very unstable, and it is a different style of behavior when it comes to foreign policy. And even the UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, spoke to the unstableness or the unpredictability when it comes to this president in North Korea and just his way of doing foreign policy. And I think that sets a very dangerous precedent for future leaders, because this is bigger than President Trump. This is bigger than this administration. This sets a precedent for future leaders who will come after him.
But Antoine, hold on. Is this not the president's path of diplomacy? I mean, this is his whole plan. We saw President Obama has met with controversial leaders. Fidel Castro comes to mind, among others. Is this not, and Morgan, I want you to respond to this, is this not a part of a larger plan?
Clearly, it's a part of a good faith negotiation. I think a lot of people have used the examples of President Obama meeting with these leaders, which is a legitimate comparison. However, I think the difference is that in those negotiations, those countries like Cuba, they were criticized at the time because sanctions were relieved, because there was penalties taken off of the table before you even saw the other side come to any sort of deal. So the difference in what we're seeing in North Korea is sanctions are still in place, the threat of force is still there, but the president's backing off, saying, I'm willing to make a good deal here.
Antoine, let me give you the last word.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference. I think the biggest difference is the hypocrisy we see from the right about the idea of even speaking to or talking with dictators. I'm old enough to remember the right exploding when President Obama said he was willing to meet with some of our enemies.
Can I make a point here, though? But here's the big difference on North Korea. Here's the big difference. North Korea now has the capability to hit us. They have some of the most sophisticated cyber warfare and nuclear technology in the world. This is a different case than what we've seen before, because the chickens finally came home to roost with North Korea. We're just in a different place.
Well, there we have it. Antoine, it's Father's Day. We got to move on. We got to do things. But thank you. We did have at least an early morning fight. Antoine Seawright and Morgan Ortagus, thanks very much for being here, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Still ahead, from jeopardy to jail, how a 7-time champion went from game show royalty to prison silence. And as mentioned, we're celebrating Father's Day the best way we know how, with dad jokes. We're sharing your best ones. That's coming up. Prepare to laugh.
We said crazy things like, I refuse to look back thinking days were better just because. Realize the older I get, the more I can see.
It is Father's Day, so of course we're wishing every single dad out there a big happy Father's Day. And we want to show you some photos of the people that make this show go on every single day, the magic that makes it happen. This is producer Megan McDonald with her family yesterday celebrating Father's Day for her dad, Richard. They're also celebrating her mom, Anna's 60th birthday. Happy birthday.
That's awesome. Here's writer Connie Harcourt's family, including her dad, Joe, at her Ball State University graduation, the day everyone in her family became Ball State grads.
And Booker Taylor Fleming, I bug her way too much for favors, and she's amazing.
Yes, you do.
Her father, I do. Her father, Bill, escaping Block Island when a hurricane hit Long Island. She's wonderful. Happy Father's Day.
She is. She does a lot for us. All right, this is Rick's dad, Bob. Today is his first Father's Day, of course, since he retired just a few weeks ago at 81 years old. Unbelievable, Rick.
81.
81.
Yeah,
We could all live his life, right?
A few Father's Days.
Yeah, he's had probably 59 of them or something like that. So
he said all of them since Rick.
Since my sister.
And that photo, last photo we showed, was he just stopped his profession of being a barber.
A barber.
Just like
he had
a month
barbered
ago.
since 1960 in my hometown.
So cool.
And,
Does he miss
and
it?
he retired.
Does he miss doing that every day?
Yeah, he was actually kind of bummed to give it up. Yeah, because it's especially for somebody like that, it's part of your it being in touch with the community, all of his friends, all of his people he cut their hair. He was their friends and get together, talk about life, politics, hiking,
What are you
all
gonna
the
get
important
him?
things.
What do you get your dad?
Oh, that stopped a long time ago.
It's true, right?
Yeah, that
Pretty
kind
much
of
like I can't get you a tie, you know, like I just love you.
Yeah, exactly.
A call.
Or maybe give him a bad joke, because that's what we've been talking about. What is it with dad and bad jokes, right? So we've
This is
asked
what
you
we
to
do.
send us in jokes, dad jokes, and you've been emailing us your thoughts. This comes from Elaine, who says, why did the football player go to the bank to get his quarterback?
I love them.
They're living up to you're living up to it. All right, thank you, Toba, thank you. All right, this tweet from Ed, why are pirates so mean? I don't know, they just,
So they pay you extra to do that on camera.
All right, one more. This tweet from Colleen. What did the horse say when he stumbled? Help, I've fallen and I can't giddy up.
By the way, I am sure that Dave, our stage manager, wrote all of these jokes.
yeah, he's distracted right now, but these are his kind of jokes.
These are totally
You guys don't
classic
know this
dad
because you're
jokes.
watching us on the screen, but he's constantly feeding us jokes all morning long. And for the most part, they actually are quite
Well,
funny.
they're funny and some pendulum of funny. Yeah. Well, Paul Ryan, who's also a dad himself, I think to 3, you had an interview recently, and he tried to make a couple of dad jokes, see if they could make each other laugh. Well, along with Representative Patrick McHenry. Listen.
What does an angry pepper do? Tell me, please. It gets all up in your face. You know, the French fries weren't originally cooked in France? No. They're cooked in Greece. I'm not gonna lie. You know, what do you call a pony with a sore throat? A little horse. Well, you fell for that one.
I could just hear his daughters being like, Dad, stop it.
The
It's so
corny factor,
the awkwardness,
is pegged.
The silence right after is the best part.
Yes.
What are we supposed
That's
to do
because
with
they're trying
this?
to figure it out.
Well, you have daughters, Griff. I know you have a whole list of bad dad jokes, but you need to be celebrated today, treated like a king.
Yes.
What do you want?
This is no joke. Children, pay attention. These are Griff's 5 rules for Father's Day. They're simple. Here you go. Number 1, beer. This is the patriarch's preferred beverage. It shall be served cold, in abundance, and with a smile. 2, steak. The patriarch's preferred food, it shall be served, grilled to perfection, also in abundance and without judgment. Number 3, dog. This is the patriarch's preferred companion. He shall be pampered, and number 2 will apply to him as well.
More than the kids.
This is important, children. Pay close attention to this. Immunity. All profanity, burping, and general idiotic utterances shall be permitted without reservation. And number 5, in case you were not paying attention, C1 through 4. It's real simple.
Well done.
Griff Jenkins, you nailed it.
How many are you going to get?
Beer, steak, dog, and immunity, at least 2 or 3 out of 5. I'm not sure about that 4th
I
one.
believe it. You have a great family.
Immunity. No one gets full immunity. You get like 1 day of immunity. And then
Oh,
you're
that's
done.
hilarious, Griff. You should email that
if
too.
you have rules, do you have rules on Father's Day? Email them to us, friends@foxnews.com. We want to know about them. I don't think you could beat Griff's, though. I really don't.
Yeah. And keep sending us your bad dad jokes, please.
Rick, can you come up with a good joke before the show's over?
I'll work on it.
One.
Google.
Just one. All right, I do want to bring you some other headlines we're following this morning. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe jumping on the Kim Jong-un bandwagon. Abe now wants his own summit with the North Korean dictator just days after President Trump's meeting in Singapore. Abe likely would address North Korea's kidnapping of Japanese citizens and how to pay for potential denuclearization. A meeting between the two could happen in Pyongyang as early as August. Wow. And remember the woman who spit on an off-duty police officer. Penny Hawthorne is her name, now turning herself into Chicago police and has been charged with misdemeanor battery assault. Authorities say if the officer had been in uniform, she would have been hit with a felony. The heinous act happening at a pro-police demonstration in Chicago last month. And let's do prison time for 5 years, please. This 7-time Jeopardy winner now faces that sentence after pleading guilty to hacking.
School through 400, please. This term for elementary school sounds like a good place to learn the rules of word usage. Stephanie.
What is a grammar school?
Good.
School for 600, please.
That is Stephanie Yaz now admitting to breaking into student and staff emails at Michigan's Adrian College. She then shared some content with a coworker. The fired history professor will be sentenced next month. And listen to this, Senator Ted Cruz taking Jimmy Kimmel to school on the hardwood. The Texas Republican beating the late-night host 11-9 in a game of one-on-one. Kimmel taunting Cruz before tip-off.
Did you spend more time this week practicing basketball than trying to get those kids out of that detention center?
The basketball challenge for charity coming after Kimmel poked fun at Cruz for supporting the Houston Rockets. Cruz got some pregame advice from so-called stunt double and former Duke standout Grayson Allen. He won, though. Cruz won.
He
Got to give credit for that.
Did you watch it? It wasn't pretty.
But that's
Really
brave
wasn't.
to do that in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
If that's not what you do.
I know, it is. It is. He clearly has played some basketball in his life.
Yeah.
But he's clearly not a basketball player.
That's clear.
That's clear. Good for him. Good win. A win's a win, no matter what. All right. All right. Coming up, a wild story. Harvard actually accused of discrimination against Asian Americans because they wanted more diversity. But wouldn't all this be solved if political correctness was eliminated? And we just, we went by merit. We're going to discuss it coming up next.
Plus, Netflix and Apple securing multi-million-dollar deals with liberals like Barack Obama and Oprah. But are they alienating a big audience in the process? We're going to tell you. Stay tuned.
Listen to this story. Asian Americans who apply to Harvard University had some of the highest academic grades on their resumes. But admissions officers were not impressed with their personalities. That's according to a study of admissions records filed Friday by a group that's suing the school over alleged discrimination. Quote, Students for Fair Admission says this is putting the students at a disadvantage and giving them some of the lowest admission rates. But wouldn't this all be solved if we just went by merit? Jason Riley is a Fox News contributor, Manhattan Institute senior fellow, and the author of the book, False Black Power, ? Jason, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Good
morning.
So Harvard is looking at the admission of Asian Americans, and they're saying, well, your test scores are great, but some of the other attributes we don't like so much, and that's what they're taking into account.
Right, and Harvard has been denying that they've done this for decades, even though it's pretty clear that they do. As the Asian population of America has grown in recent decades, at schools that use race-blind admissions, we've seen Asian enrollment go up. But at Harvard, it somehow stayed pretty much the same as a percentage of the overall student body for decades. And Harvard says that's just a coincidence. We're not using quotas, which of course are banned by the Supreme Court. But here we see that they clearly are. They've been caught here, and they're nervous about what might happen in this lawsuit.
So they give Asian Americans lower ratings on things like positive personality, likability, courage, kindness, and being widely respected. So they're looking at the whole world through the lens of race, and as a result, one race gets discriminated against.
Yes, exactly. Asians are essentially competing only with one another to get into these elite schools, and of course it's not fair. And that's what happens when you try to advantage one group, you necessarily disadvantage other groups. This is a zero-sum game at these elite schools. There are only so many slots to go around, and Harvard is trying to racially balance its student population. And to be fair to the school, the Supreme Court has given them a lot of wiggle room to do this, because the Supreme Court keeps punting on this issue. Can you use race admissions or not? Or how much can you use it? And the Supreme Court has basically been saying, oh, it can be a factor as long as it's not the decisive factor. And so schools don't really have some hard barriers as to where to go here, and it leads to situations like this. So we really need the Supreme Court to issue a definitive ruling about whether race can be used in this process or not.
Harvard says this in response. They say the analysis of the data and evidence makes clear that Harvard does not discriminate against applicants from any group, including Asian Americans, whose rate of admission has grown 29% over the last decade. But as you said, schools can interpret the amount of race they want to factor in.
Yes, but we have to, originally, affirmative action was supposed to redress what whites had historically done to blacks. Why Asians should be disadvantaged in order to address that is just a mystery to me. This is not the way the system should work. These policies are not only discriminatory, they're harmful, and we know that from the evidence. So I think that a race-blind admissions process is the way to go, and I think that would be the fairest course for everyone, particularly Asians. They should not be punished for excelling academically, which essentially is what Harvard is doing to them.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, it's Father's Day. Yeah. You've got a bit of a message for folks. What is it?
Well, I try to follow my father's example, which was to not only be present in the lives of his children, but to be involved. I mean, there are a lot of heroic single moms out there, we all know that, but the odds are really stacked against them statistically. So if we want to improve outcomes for these children, keep them off drugs, out of jail, prevent teen pregnancy, keep them out of poverty and so forth, a father in their lives can go a long way towards doing that. So that's the example I try and set.
I love it. Jason Riley, happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good stuff. All right, well, moving on. Stunning news out of Europe this morning, where Germany's leader, Angela Merkel, could lose power any day now because of her open border policy. We're to explain at the top of the hour. Plus, big name tech companies striking big deals with former President Obama and Oprah. But our next guest says they're alienating a big chunk of Americans in the process.
We are back with this. Apple announcing a multi-year deal with Oprah to create original content for their streaming service. This as the Obamas struck up a production deal last month with Netflix. But aren't these companies alienating a big chunk of their audience by striking deals with big liberal names? Here to discuss, former campaign deputy press secretary Lauren DeBellis Appel. Lauren, good to have you with us this morning.
Good morning, Abby. Good to be here.
This sounds great if you are an Obama, an Oprah fan, and you like their policies, but what about everybody else?
Well, you know, Oprah, you can kind of understand. She's a big name. She's an entertainer. She's a proven moneymaker. But with the Obamas, Netflix, the risk that they run is that they're alienating, you know, a huge fan base that is proven to draw names, as we've seen with Roseanne, as we've seen with Last Man Standing. This is a huge fan base. Now, maybe do people really want to tune in to see a former ex-president who a former president who is not very popular anymore? I mean, I don't know. Do they want to see that? Roseanne and Last Man Standing, they have drawn names, and ABC, they got rid of Last Man Standing on Friday nights in the 8 o'clock hour, and Fox has picked them back up again. They got rid of them at 8 o'clock in the time slot. Fox picked them back up. Last Man Standing drew 6.4 million viewers.
Yeah. Could you see this happening, a Netflix type of deal with a former Republican president, or you feel like they've made it clear what their politics are?
They've absolutely made it clear. And, you know, maybe we'll see it in the future. I don't know. You know, maybe we'll see it in the future.
Yeah, because there are a lot of folks in this country feel like their voice isn't being heard enough. I think that election in 2016 made that very clear. Lauren, good to have you on with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, a big show still ahead on this Father's Day. Mike Huckabee, Corey Lewandowski, and David Bossie. They are all here and much more coming up.
This is the feel that turns me on. Oh, everybody's got that window down. Summertime, turn it